sort of an important part of accessing that information. We've got lots of leaflets, but it's not the same stuff, and obviously it's not as up to date as what's on the website. So another member of our team who is key as well is a graphic designer. And so that has been really useful in setting up the website, designing it, doing our logo, general sort of publicity and putting it out there stuff. So that's amazing. So any artistic people, particularly to do with web design stuff, is invaluable. So that's sort of in terms of our team. Obviously, if you've got anybody who's really good at comms, that's fantastic as well. I know XR always struggles with that because of our sort of demographic. But if you can get, any younger people who are on the more modern social media platforms, that's really useful for engaging with a slightly different age group as well. You know, we've got a Facebook page, but in my experience, anyone under, I don't know, 25, 20 doesn't go near that anymore. So yeah, it's useful to have people who can do, Instagram. People still use Twitter, I think, don't they, and stuff for getting your message out a bit further. Obviously, also finance. If anybody's been treasurer for any other organisations before, that's really useful experience. And I'm sure Phoenix has done lots of this with your team. We had to, put up some shelves, sort out the space quite a lot. So carpenters, general fixers, handy people are great because you're unlikely to find something that physically suits you immediately. So again, that's been key to getting us physically going. In terms of sort of wider engagement, before we opened physically because of COVID, obviously as well, the website was the key way that we were getting ourselves out there and showcasing sort of what we were going to try to do and the projects that were already ongoing. So before you've got any chance of doing anything physically, obviously that's really useful. That and the shop window, before we could get in, we had access to the window, and we've got some brilliant artists, and that was a really good way of just getting people's attention to start with. So we had a thing at Christmas and a thing at Easter, so it wasn't necessarily all in your face climate initially. You can have different themes that are attractive in a window. Great place to put people's posters, to advertise campaigns, and things like kids poster competitions. Great way of engaging different sections of the community. If you can get local schools to get kids to do a poster campaign on something or a competition, then they all come and look in your window. That was a really good way of getting started really before we were open as well. And then one of our team also, when we were online, organised some fantastic webinars. So we had something on river and water health, and we had some local experts. Again, you can advertise that really widely, and that's really easy to do on Zoom. We have got a very small shop, so we'd struggle to do that anyway, actually, physically. So apart from we're Transition Town, we were XR, and we were a group called Friends of Lewes, who's another one of their members is another of our trustees. And that was a completely different sort of set of people. They're concerned a lot with conservation because Lewes is quite an old town, so they're very, very into buildings and the place looking beautiful, etc. But they had a section where they're very involved with tree planting because of part of the character of the town. So that was a really useful intersection because their members are really different from our guys. So it was useful if if there's any ways into other organisations that might have sort of environmental bits associated with them. So that's been useful, and she also does the Swift supporters. So that everybody loves encouraging swifts and loves the idea of the birds. So that again is you know, any obviously wildlife and biodiversity type initiatives, which I'm sure there are loads everywhere to do with allotments, gardening, wildflowers. That's really broad interest as well. And the other key thing at the beginning, I think, was working with the council. So we've got in Lewes, we've got a town council and a district council, which is a slightly different organisation from a lot of places. And luckily, we've got quite a lot of green councillors at a very local level. So they've got obviously their climate strategy, their plans for that. And so we have tried to work with them to say, okay, you know, you've got these goals, but basically they haven't got any money really to deliver any of them. So we're trying to tie in. So we sort of developed, I think it's 10 or 11 key areas: food, transport, economy, well-being, biodiversity, etc., that we've sort of organised our affiliate groups into in our hub. And they are virtually the same as the council's areas for their goals for their climate strategy. So we're trying to, you know, promote ourselves as a way of the council getting projects off the ground, and then in the other direction from the community up, trying to liaise with for what the community wants to feed into what the council's plans are. So I think that's a really useful relationship, and because we're quite a small place, a lot of people know the councillors personally, so that's working very well. We're thinking about having surgeries, so one of the council members could sit in the hub and have, you know, public sessions like MPs do for people to come and you know, say what they'd like to see in the town. So that relationship is quite an important one. So, and also they've been a really good source of funding. That's the other thing, obviously, because the premises and stuff in the town. So the town council actually gave us a grant to pay the rent, and the district council, it's one of their old crappy old bits of building that they haven't used for years, that we are now in. So yeah, they've been key to us starting up as well. So yeah, lots of engagement with them is really useful, and also they're quite accessible, aren't they? Local councillors, you can get at them quite easily. So yeah, that's a key relationship. Okay, outreach a bit wider. So we've got a newsletter that we've been doing, and that I know Gemma's done as well in Seaford, which is a really good way. You can put it out digitally. That's a really good way of communicating with the community and all your groups as to what's going on at the moment, and to invite people to join in things that they're interested in doing, and to let people know what is happening, because there's so much happening, isn't there, everywhere with amazing groups, and people just really don't realise what's going on already. I think it's really inspiring for people to find out what is actually happening now. So that's a good source of outreach, and then also it can contain any campaigns that people are working on. So, for example, we promoted the CEE bill and bank switching through the newsletter as well, and links for again, digitally, it's great because you can just put links in for people to find out more information about projects and campaigns that they're interested in. Okay, then wider outreach wise, we haven't done a lot actually physically in the hub yet because it's very small and we're still a bit under COVID restrictions, but we're hoping to do some workshops. Plastic Free are going to do a workshop on plastic free cleaning in the home, for example, so that people can come in and, you know, do something practical in the space. And we're hoping we can do some kids workshops to do with making stuff and DBS checks and God knows what allowing, which might be slightly tricky. Maybe also coffee. We're not big enough to have a cafe, but maybe some things like coffee mornings for maybe we're trying to maybe get some slightly older demographic as well, or younger, for people who are around a bit during the day when we can actually be open. to get people in who are sort of lurking around town and wanting to do something sociable in the daytime. And our community energy company hopefully are going to be able to use the space also for giving advice on cutting your energy bills. So again, that's a great way, hopefully, to get people in and maybe a different section of people. Okay, so meeting staff incentive, yeah. We thought about having a food bank in it, but it's, well, unfortunately, food pantry mostly now, but we're a bit too small to do that. But obviously, if you have the space, that's great. Also, anything recycling wise is great if you've got the space. We thought about TerraCycle. Local radio, we've got a community radio place in Lewes, and TV and newspapers. They're all great ways. So in our for our opening, for example, our local rag did articles. Often the local press, if you just send them stuff, they'll publish it, won't they? Because they generally don't want to do too much work. So if you've got anybody who's good at photos and writing press releases, that's a great way of getting things out into the community. And the local radio station, again, they're looking for stuff to fill it. So they might even give us a regular slot to talk about the environment. So that's very cool. Oh, the football club. We've got a little football club in Lewes who are amazingly, in fact, I have to plug the Lewes women's team. I think they were supposed to be the first team in the world to pay their men and women same, which they should be getting more really because the women are much better. But anyway, yeah, they're interested in having a little community garden. So our Wildflower Lewes people are helping to advise them on starting that off. There's the football club. Oh yeah, we thought of doing a few meetings in the pub actually, but we haven't got there so far. But I think we need to move out of our space a little bit and go into other spaces. But hopefully that'll come. The other thing with the council is which ties in nicely with Trust the People, as well as we're going to do some people's assemblies, and I think that's probably a good way as well of opening it up to the wider community. We're thinking of doing things to do with housing and transport to start with, which virtually everybody, is concerned with in some way in their community. And there's lots of new developments, obviously, that are being planned all over the countryside. So a lot of people are very engaged and interested in that. And transport is a massive issue, isn't it, in terms of just, certainly in rural areas, they're not really being much, and of course air pollution and stuff. So we're hopefully going to get some community engagement and be able to feed that back to the council as well. And hopefully if we can say to people, okay, this is the council strategy as well. If you feed in your ideas, then, we'll be a way of passing those on to directly to the council. So hopefully that motivates people to come and participate in that. How am I doing for time?
Awesome. That is absolutely awesome, Jane. You're a fountain of actions and ideas. That's really, I was scribbling down lots of notes, lots of inspiration there for us and groups around the country. We've learned a lot of things from you there. Thank you very much for that. I think we're going to go over maybe to Chris, and then if people want to write down questions for both Chris and Jane after, maybe that's the better way to do it, is it? I think, yeah, because on timing, we're about 7:30. I think a few people had to leave around 7:30. So should we come up? Thank you so much, Jane. That's really inspiring. Should we come over to Chris and let Chris present, and then the whole group, we can ask questions to both of them. But thank you very much for that. Really inspired by Lewis's actions. Let's chat more. Chris, over to the Exeter. It's like University Challenge around here, and over to Exeter.
Something like that, yeah. Okay, so we're in quite a different position. We're much less mature organisation. I think we can trace the beginnings of the Exeter Community Association Alliance, as we call ourselves, back to December, when a group of us in Extinction XR XR Exeter decided to have some meetings to talk about system change and how we could do things more than XR do, which is kind of getting attention, but actually have some thoughts about where we want to go. And it became obvious that it's much more than a climate crisis that we're facing. It's, there's the ecological crisis, obviously, which is entwined with it, but there's also all these problems of injustice, poverty, exploitation, and all those sorts of concepts. And we also really like the kind of movement of movements, which has kind of been a sort of buzz phrase in XR for the last year or so. Really like the idea of working with other people to have a goal in mind of where we want to see, where we see society going, locally and globally. So it grew out of that, and we kind of had these like philosophical meetings, 2 or 3 of them, and the concept of CECs came up, and we kind of focused on that as something that we could actually do that would help us to enable all these other things. Once you've got somewhere in the centre of town where people can drop in, they're not just meeting XR out on the streets where we might be winding people up, but you can actually do real outreach and have great conversations. It's really where we focused on. The first thing that we decided to do was do some formal outreach. Our XR group had done some in the past, so we had a list of names of other groups already. And of course, because XR are such a young organization, most of the people that are in XR have got associations with other like-minded groups already. So we had all these ins, and so we decided to set up a working group. There were 2 women decided to volunteer to do that. Did normal thing with spreadsheets, contact lists. We decided to, if you had a contact with an organization, those people would make the first sort of phone conversation and chat with them, and then follow up with our outreach group, doing emails. And then we've got a newsletter which I send out twice a month, basically an introduction to each meeting a few days before our monthly meetings, and then another one which summarizes what's happened. So we've also set up a forum on our website where people can introduce themselves and talk about different subjects, because we find that although we've got about 50 people involved at the moment and 20 different organizations, we get maybe between a dozen and 15, 20 people at each of the monthly meetings, and apart from 3 or 4 of them, they'll all be very different. They'll all be different from the previous meeting. So just to keep people on track, that we've decided to do that. We don't yet have a building. We are in the throes of setting up a legal entity. As some of you know, we had our application to be a CIO rejected, and we put in another one last week, which hasn't been rejected yet. So fingers are still crossed on that front. One of the things that we did as far as diversity was concerned was on the setting up the trustees, because we put out a shout out saying, right, we've got to set up a CIO. We need at least 3, preferably half a dozen trustees. And of course, 2 other people just like me stepped forward, cis males, middle class, middle-aged, we check none of the boxes that you want for diversity. Absolutely rubbish. And the problem is, it's people like me that, I don't know, we're privileged in that we've got the time. We've got some experience in setting up businesses and things like that. So and we're enthused to do this, but we don't have the kind of diverse experience that so many other people do, because a lot of those sorts of people are living a hand-to-mouth existence, and they haven't got time for doing this sort of thing. I had been to the Black Lives Matter protests the previous year and been following the local Facebook page. And I made contact with a young lady there, Maya. She's only 22. She's still at university, but she's running BLM in Exeter. She also does food deliveries for disadvantaged people that don't usually go to food banks. And I'm down in Devon, obviously, and it tends to be very, very white down here. Exeter's a bit different, but I live outside Exeter. And she also is an equality activist. So she does she's an EDI consultant, which is equality, diversity, and inclusion. So she was a brilliant find. We got her to do a presentation to us to sort of describe what it felt like, to come down to Exeter as she did from, I believe, Brixton when she was a very young teenager. And she said she'd never experienced racism until she came down here, which is kind of like a real, mind opener. You just, wow, I mean, I know that there's people that are arseholes down here, but, you just, I suppose you think it's everywhere, but it's interesting for her to tell us that it was coming here that really opened her eyes to the need for it. So she does a lot of work on that front. So when we decided to set up a CIO, the three males stepped forward, and we thought if we want to be a group that champions diversity and inclusion and equality, we've got to do something different. So we kind of went back to our members and said, look, we really do need some help with this. We're not going to be a normal sort of charity where the trustees run everything. As you probably know, there's two different types of CIO you can have. You can have one where the trustees make all the decisions, or you can have a membership-based thing. And we decided the best thing to do was to have to kind of adopt the XR concept of working groups. So our trustees, as far as we're concerned, are just a working group, and they handle the constitution and the charity application and those sorts of things, and make sure that we don't do anything wrong on the charity front. But we wanted to keep them just to that, so that it wasn't like a top-down organization. It's very much a bottom-up organization with the members each having a vote on what we do. So Maya came on board, and we found two other people of a more female persuasion to join us. One has since dropped out, but we now are a much more diverse. When we put the trustees on the website, we don't look like three white males. So it's a great thing, and I would kind of advise that it's people like me tend to try and just motor ahead. Once we've got three trustees, let's go for it. And luckily, one of the people in the organisation did say, Chris, just hold it up. Make sure that you've got start in the way that you mean to go on, because otherwise you'll find that you will be just another all-white group that doesn't reflect what you really want to be doing. So that is a really good bit of advice. Apart from that, I haven't really got an awful lot more to say. As I say, that we're a much younger organisation. We've only just really started to seriously look for properties. We haven't had any luck so far. When the idea first came up, there were tons of boarded up and soon to be empty properties in Exeter, but there seems to have been a real movement in filling them. And from speaking to land agents and commercial agents, they say that this past couple of months has probably been the worst time to try and start this, because there's been all these projects that have been on the back burner for the last year to 18 months that are either going to come to fruition now, or they're going to be forever binned. So I'm told that in a couple of months it's going to be better, but we've got our eye on a few places. We've got some very particular things that we want from a property. One of our members, James Brown, who he's got a charity that provides mobile disabled toilets. He wants to have a workshop, and he said that if we can find somewhere that's got a rear access with a workshop, so that you can actually get vehicles in there, and quite a few modern places would have that. He would be happy to pay all our service charges, which is obviously the main, if you're rent free and your rate's free, it's basically services that are going to be a major cost. So, if we can find that property, then it makes a massive difference to us. And our whole business plan is just completely different. We're just set up our funding stroke finance working group, and we're just starting to explore that. Obviously, the first thing we need is a business plan, but until we know what sort of property we're looking at, that becomes a little bit tricky. We could be going two completely different ways.
Chris, you said you've got about 20 organisations in your kind of alliance. Can you just
Yes.
tell us a number of them, just to give some ideas there to the group, and then we'll probably go to questions fairly soon. We've got about 19-20 minutes.
Cool. Okay, so we got some of the kind of usual suspects like CND, Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion. The core originally came from Extinction Rebellion. Black Lives Matter, Feed Our Community. That's another organisation that Maya runs. Mobiloo, which is the disabled toilets I mentioned. Transition Exeter. Exeter Community Energy, who give advice on energy, and they've got a. I'm not exactly sure how they work, as I haven't yet met them other than on Zoom for our little meetings. But they are looking for premises where they can give the public advice. They usually do things like rent school halls and things for an evening, and obviously this is the thing that many of our groups want is somewhere that people can come to, where you don't actually have to have a representative of that organization there that day, but there will be 2 or 3 people there, and they'll have knowledge of all the different groups, and you can have much less formal drop-in type things. So that's the ones that I've got on my on the website at the moment. We've got the wildlife people, we've got birds thing. We've got 20. I can let you have that list of 20 odd organisations.
That's cool. That really shows a good, nice diversity of groups all around, and that's one of the beauties of this project. It seems to bring groups out of the woodwork that need space, and sometimes groups know each other, but then half the groups don't know the other half, and it can bring people together. Thank you, Chris. Is that any parting thing you want to say there, and then we'll go to questions?
No, I mean that's kind of what I was planning on saying. I'm very happy to answer any questions if anybody can think of anything they want to ask.
It's really lovely to see groups going through this process and the groups they've outreached to and brought together. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jane and Chris. I've learned there, and I've been at this 30 years, and from both of you, particularly Chris, the top down, up down, top down, how you organising was very interesting to me there. And Jane, you've really done a massive amount of linking lots of groups in and things. So okay, so if we can use the little reactions thing down the bottom, there's this little thing, raise hand. I mean, you can still stick your finger up, but it really helps if I'm facilitating. I can see who's 1, 2, 3. So reactions down the bottom. You raise your hand when you finish your question, lower your hand again, and then it puts the first 1, 2, 3 in order. Saves me trying to remember who's 3rd and 5th and 4th or whatever. So, oh, there we go. In with the Bristol team, University Challenge. Oh, then Bristol got in there first, but then the Farnham team came in, jumped in. What's going on with the computer system here? We'll have to have a word with the techies. Okay, over to Bristol. Question for 5. Over.
Yeah, question for 5. Chris, that was really interesting. That, in fact, both those presentations were fantastic. My question is, okay.
Go on. Oh, God. Hello, what's going on?
Josephine, you still there?
So I haven't muted everyone, have we somehow, Ruth?
No, she's not muted. She's not got the mute button on.
Everyone else has. Josephine, can you hear us?
So maybe something's happened to the signal.
I pressed mute on mine because I wanted to cough, and then maybe it muted everyone. Might have been my fault. Can you try and unmute everyone?
Yep.
Ruth, can you unmute everyone?
I can't unmute people. They have to do it themselves.
All right. So Josephine, I think her connection's been lost. She's disappeared. All right, let's go to Ruth's question, and then anyone else stick your hand up, and we'll go around. I've got a few.
Yeah,
Ruth.
I was going to ask about how it went, because I know the Lewes team are linked in with the mutual aid group. That's how they got started initially. And then Chris was talking about the Exeter team linking in with the Black Lives Matter, and then the community food and all of those sorts of. How did you deal with? Because there's often where I am, there's a real separation between the environment stuff and the social stuff. Mm. They sort of look and go, but you're doing something different. How did you get them sort of seeing actually it's the same? We can all work together on the same stuff here. How did that relationship get built? Well,
as far as it's been for us, it's not been a difficult problem. everybody has everybody seems on side in that all these things are interconnected. We don't have this dividing line at all, possibly because people, you know, like me that's driving it, I don't see it being a distinct thing. You know, it's a symptom of, you know, it's obviously a massive symptom of things that are wrong with how humans have been interacting with the planet and each other over the last, you know, century or so. So we haven't come across it at all.
That question to Jane, was it, Ruth, that on mutual aid group?
Yeah, so we started with the coronavirus volunteers almost accidentally, really, because they got awarded the premises that, and then we snuck in and said, can we share it? So because it was in the middle of COVID, the council, you know, that was their priority. And actually they're not in it very much now because they've sort of, they're not so active. But in terms of how it works, I think actually that thing about well-being, they've been, you know, that's the link, really, the obvious link between us in terms of promoting well-being activities, which are, you know, increasingly being related to being outside and doing stuff in gardens and woods and things. So I think a few of our groups that crosses over, because so the allotment and the wildflower group, you know, they provide sessions for people who are, you know, various ways can benefit from them. So that can be a good point to link up with. And also if you can, you know, do anything food bank wise and stuff, that was another obvious link with the coronavirus volunteers.
Cool. Debs?
Yeah, I was just jumping up back at what Chris and Jane were just saying, like how to like start making contact with different groups and that. With the way I did it at first was I just thought like, all right, who do I know, like who I can like rely on, and which groups do I know who are friendly and stuff like that. So I like wrote an email and reached out to Friends of the Earth, and then through that I came across like Climate Action Preston, and then they like seemed to go quiet for like quite a while, but then like more recently I found like they've been contacting me because they're like, oh we need, like we do need this space and that in Preston, and like of like the people like asking me like they like to run the vegan cafe in there and things like that, and like the Climate Action Group, they want like the bike repair shop in there and that, where at first like they were all like, oh well, we've already got a bike repair place like planned and stuff like that, but then yeah, all of a sudden they're like coming back to me and saying with council and that, because they don't know, people want to do stuff and everybody I think wants to do stuff, but they just don't know how. So it's like finding a meeting place where we can all come together and put our minds together and figure out what needs doing in each of our areas, isn't it?
Bang on as always, Debs. Absolutely. Find the space, and Debs once said a while ago, means build it and they'll come. But yeah, we need these spaces. Helen, over to Leeds.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to be the voice of doom, but we really struggle to join up with social justice groups. We have things, we invite people, they seem to go well, and then next thing we're told that we're all middle class and you environmentalists are all middle class and not like us, and it's like, oh, we really struggle with it. And if we do get anyone who is on the social justice side, we then get accused of using them by asking them to come and help, you know. So it really is difficult in Leeds. I don't know whether it is, with it being a big place, you can go more into big groups of ghettos, if you like, of you don't need each other as much, whereas if you're in a small town you tend to know each other a bit as neighbours or whatever. But it really is something we really struggle with.
Okay, that's totally fair enough to say, Helen. I mean, you know, to me, I see all these things as interconnected,
Yeah,
environmental and social and community. And one of the things we're trying to put is, you know, solutions to the environmental crisis, also solutions to the social crisis. But, you know, it's an ongoing process of trying to bring groups and people together, and there will be issues. And particularly in the alliance building thing, there's many people come from many different walks of life and different opinions, but you know, creating these spaces creates a space where people can gradually get to know each other and work through some of these processes. I've got Chris and then Ryan, number 2. Yeah, Chris, then Ryan, over.
Yeah, just another thing that just occurred to me that we've been doing down here that's maybe helped a little bit is that we've been supporting the Stop the Bill or Kill the Bill protests.
So away.
Yeah, so you know we've supplied the sound system and a samba band and stuff like that. So we've kind of helped with that, and we invited some travellers, some people of colour, and there was quite a diverse thing. And the particularly interesting was a bunch of young ladies that came from the local college. So you know, one of the things obviously that's wrong with XR is the age of most of us tends to be quite high. But it was great to get them and help them do stuff. And so you know, we used to do that with Fridays for Future and the marches. But yeah, you know, at places like that, you just get talking to all sorts of people. You know, even if they are trying to sell you a copy of Socialist Workers, whatever it is. You know, there's a lot of diversity there at those sorts of things. Maybe we've just been lucky. I don't know.
Okay. Good points. Ryan next, then Gemma.
Yeah, I just wanted, basically echoing what Chris said. So Manchester is another big place, and I think we've partly because of capacity, but also, yeah, all these different organisations and groups that feel like they've very much got their own stuff to get on with, and they're very busy and overworked, and it's all voluntary and unpaid. So, yeah, it is a lot of energy to ask them to come in, but actually going to their protests and their workshops and their things has is
we've really done everything.
Okay.
I think personally speaking, I think someone who is very vociferous for Black Lives Matter, she seems to put a spanner in the works for us. We did the Kill the Bill thing. It was everybody together. It was wonderful. We ran a people's assembly in the park. We got 100 people there. Everyone was really impressed. I didn't get to this sort of debrief meeting, and they tore Lizzie and Sarah to shreds for being racist. And it was like, they're not. So, I don't know. We just really struggle here.
I think this, you know, I've seen some of those groups interacting before. It's an ongoing process for people of different cultures to work things out. There's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of issues around colonialism and the assumed things and privilege. And there is stuff that comes up, and it's a difficult process for people.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say though, we did an outreach thing in Roundy Park, which is a very multicultural area of the town, and talking to just general people passing by of every description, it went wonderful. So I think maybe it's just we've got to reach out to people rather than other groups.
Keep networking and work through the process. I think, so Ryan, did you finish your point?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, and over to Gemma. Very nice to see Manchester team beaming in. And please join each other's social media links to see Manchester's Facebook and a few others there. Over to Gemma.
Yeah, I was just going to say about our experience. So we invited all the local groups to a meeting to see how we could work together. And after it, pretty much all of them said, no, we're already doing our thing. It takes our spare time is doing this. So we don't want to get involved in anything else. So what we did is we reached out to individuals, and then we've started up projects and got people to join in the projects. And also some of these groups have joined in the projects as well. Yeah, that's worked really well for us. So more and more people want to work with us on other projects that they've had ideas for as well, like Plastic Free. She wants to, they want to do something about plastic. We've got biodiversity groups, we've got a repair cafe starting, people want to come and help with that. So yeah, we've found that it's easier to get individuals on board rather than groups.
Ruth, very good points to Gemma.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, Gemma's echoing what a couple of other people were saying about that. If you go to individuals and people, and maybe it's about building those relationships, because you're just talking person to person rather than group and agenda to agenda, I guess. One of the things that struck me when Ryan was talking and then Helen is that it sounds like, particularly because environmental groups do tend to be quite middle class and white, there is something about actually what needs to happen is you need to listen to what other groups need or what they're trying to do and find environmentally sustainable solutions to what they're trying to do. So, a lot of the time, I mean, you got food banks are a classic one, but, the clothes sharing, food growing, resource library of things, all that sort of stuff is actually meeting a lot of needs, social needs, in an environmentally sustainable way. So there's something about kind of what are your needs? How do we put that? And I guess, and also I'm just thinking one of the things in the handbook is about you have a core group, which might come from different groups, but then there's also about alliance. Who wants to use the building? Whatever it is that you want to do in the building, who wants to use it? And separating out that. And so even if they don't want to get involved in the setting up of the CEC, they want to be an ally to and use the building once it's open. And that builds it that way.
I've probably got a few points to bang, but absolutely fantastic session. I think we've all learned from each other. That's part of the process of what we're trying to do with a Climate Emergency Centre network. There are learnings. There are, through 30 years of doing this, I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of learnings, and you learn off each other. People need space, communities need space, the environment projects need space. Bringing together many different groups from across town is going to be an interesting, a fantastic, incredible journey and adventure, but also sometimes a difficult process. Different groups come from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different perspectives, have different ways of organising, age differences, demographic differences. But if we can, work together to create these spaces and learn from each other, there is a magic that happens and a learning through those processes. One of the things in the handbook that we put in is I think it's Appendix I, or it's on the website. Having a look, there's a generic list of 50 different groups that could be in any town or city, and trying to find out what environment and community and groups that are in town and that you could reach out to and invite in. And you won't be able to get all of them, and some of them will or won't want to work with you. Some of them, I think, taking a point just made there, may see once you start to get projects and spaces and things going, that they might want to join in at another stage. This isn't just about one building. We're on a campaign to get the intelligent reuse of the vacant property, the empty building infrastructure in every town and city. You could be getting a shop on the high street. You could be getting a community centre building in an old school or factory or warehouse. You could be getting a warehouse building that links into one of those, more public buildings that recycles and reuses stuff. And, keep networking, keep outreaching. It's a gradual process. This is a decades-long project. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And, we hope that our future generations have got an incredible network of these spaces, and not just buildings, but land where they can grow things and create things and help and share. All right, is there any parting comments or checkouts? I'm just conscious we've got the Barnet group. Me and Ruth are doing a Zoom at 8:15. So maybe if people want to do checkouts or any parting comments. Thank you so much to Jane and to Chris, really, for sharing your process with us. My name's Phoenix. I love to see you all evolving and bringing these spaces together. Any help you need, please do ring me and Ruth, or we can get Linda to help along your process. Keep us posted and keep the Telegram chat posted about learnings and what you're doing and stuff. Who wants to check out next? Sorry, but shorter than Phoenix's checkout. Ruth.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks so much, Chris and Jane, because it's one of those things where it was really good to get a small town in a small area, and what was doing there, whether it's very different issues to a city, and what's going on there, and how you've approached it and what you've needed to do. I love the idea of getting the schools to do the poster. It's quite cool. But yeah, lovely to meet you both and see everybody and say hi to new people. And I will pass to Shirley.
You're muted. Check out any parting comments, Shirley.
Really interesting. My first time. I should be back again next time. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Passing to Ryan.
Yeah, nice to know that it's happening everywhere. First one of these I've been to. We're sharing these out, so I probably won't be here next time. But yeah, good to see it's all happening. And I'll pass to Gemma.
Yeah, no, this is really great, and thanks for to Jane and Chris. It's been really useful, and this whole group is just brilliant. I don't know anyone else, but we wouldn't be here without it. So thanks very much.
Over to Fiona in Telford.
Yes, same really, just really helpful to hear everybody's experiences, and I'm also using people's documents they've posted in Google Drive, like to formulate the business plan. I mean, without this sort of resource, I would really be struggling to know where on earth what to do. So it is really, really helpful. Thanks everyone. Over to, sorry, Debs.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane and Chris, for a great talk. Yeah, I'm a bit tired and a bit feeling sorry for myself tonight. My dog's poorly, so.
Love you guys. Over to Manchester.
Helen, have you been?
No. Yeah, I just want to say thank you all very much. Absolutely great meeting. Just so much to learn from you guys. You're an amazing resource.
Let's have a longer chat, Mandy. We're trying to get a building in Glasgow for the COP26, but please do give us a ring or email. Let's move things forward.
I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Helen?
So until this meeting, all I'd learnt today is when you drop a cucumber, it breaks in half. So I've learnt a bit more. I'll pass to Jane.
I can't top that. That's great. Yeah, no, just really inspiring to know that everybody's doing it. You know, it just feels so different, doesn't it, when you know there are so many people doing the same stuff. Thanks. Sorry, who haven't we had? Pat.
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant. The sort of feet on the ground, practical information, and also the willingness of people to share the problems. Because people aren't just saying, "Oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful." It's what doesn't work, and a problem is a solution in disguise, and you're working out the solutions as well. So thank you. Really glad to be joining this group.
Problem is a solution in disguise. I'm taking that one on, Pat. Thanks for that for the talking team. Who else have we got? Jill Gale Tiverton. Has Jill been? Checking out, Jill, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you very much. And it's been very encouraging. Thank you.
Okay, who's still to check out? Anyone else? Chris?
Yeah, great to see you all here again. And thanks very much, Ruth and Phoenix, for kind of keeping this project going and hosting these weekly meetings and chatting to everybody and giving advice and all those resources you've got. I mean, it is really phenomenal, and we wouldn't be able to do it without, guys like you to fall back on. So thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Just to say from our end, anybody, please network more people to come to these Thursday meetings. It gives us hope, and that we're creating these spaces and supporting each other. And network it to other people. Send one person from your group to Thursday if you can. I think that's about it now. We have a tradition here that because some of us spend hours on Zoom and we're hoping for more physical meetings coming, but we play a little bit of music at the end. If you want to get up out your chair, move your arms around. We're going to disappear off shortly because we've got to do Barnet, but here's a little tune. Ruth, go on, quick one.
8th of July, Great Big Green Week having to present. It's the whole big thing that's happening, a community, get everybody getting environmental together in communities, run by loads of groups. But what somebody from there is presenting on the 8th of July to us on our network. So do come along to that so we can find out how to get involved and engaged as the CEC network. Very exciting. So, yeah.
Okay. And so basically the idea is you move around, get out of your seat because you've been sitting in your seat for a long time.